check your phone at this interview, and they do this. They take your cell phone and they look through your texting history to see what pictures you've been sending people. Who are you texting?
If somebody is supposed to learn one lesson from today, what would that be?
Do not underestimate the importance of social media for your U.S. immigration visa or green card or citizenship process. Be very mindful of what you post and review it on a regular basis. They might also find pictures that are inappropriate for your process, and you have to understand that they have a right to do that. People also think that they have protections under the First Amendment, which is false. You really do not. I had a Russian client filing for asylum saying that the government persecutes his clan. The first thing that comes up is him holding a flag and like the Constitution and posting how much he loves the president. And of course, we couldn't represent him. His whole thing was a lie. And people don't realize what they post is going to be used against them in ways they can't even imagine. You know?
Marina Shepelsky, you're welcome to the Beyond Africa podcast.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
You are an attorney, you practice immigration law, a resident in New York, New Jersey, but immigration law is practiced throughout the country. And you've had so much experience talking to immigrants who are applying for immigrant benefits. Does the USCIS actually visit, investigate, and Facebook accounts, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, WhatsApp, YouTube, when somebody applies for a green card, a visa, adjustment of status?
Yes, absolutely. When people apply outside of US, consular officers run social media checks, and of course this is done through AI now. The government has contracts with AI providers and software that do this for them. I don't think that anybody sits there and like manually put somebody's name into Google and looks. There's AI checks they use, and they've like recently started using them. And if you're filing for a green card inside US, USCIS also runs a check of social, but also it's more complex than that. They check social media. Don't underestimate our government. They check against like FBI, CIA list, and other intelligence. You know, and they have they're looking for. You know, and they program that into the AI.
So, what is the biggest misconception you've had about this so far?
People underestimate the importance of their social media on their immigration process. And they also think that they have protections under the First Amendment, which is false. You really do not. Until you are like a green card holder, preferably a citizen, then you can start to enjoy the full protection of the First Amendment that protects people's right to free speech.
Let's talk about First Amendment in a moment. Yeah, let's focus on the misconception that people have about the depth of this investigation, or you call it search.
So the misconceptions is like basically we do like until it's not so serious, or what you maybe put on your LinkedIn that's not going to be connected to like a case that you're filing, because LinkedIn, although LinkedIn is a big thing in America, I'm not sure that people overseas use LinkedIn as much as we do here inside US. Just like you know, the culture, they like certain social media platforms better than others. But I think they underestimate how important social media is, how even things that you delete, like if you deleted an account, it's still out there on the internet. There's no way to ever delete it, and especially for the government to access. They definitely can, and they will. So, you know, the problem is underestimating our government. They always underestimate how deep USCIS or like the state can go. They can go deep.
So why do you think this is a new topic in immigration conversations? It's not been there before, but
they're bringing in AI has given them a much better tool at checking these things that you know they weren't there before. For someone, for the amount of people applying for consular processing, for green cards in the US, to really dive deep. With the advent of AI, you press the button and this is done for you in minutes. So you don't need as much resources, and that's why it's now at the forefront, because let's be honest, with this administration, what they're doing, there's never been this type of a pushback against everything, criticizing by the public, by U.S. citizens and non-citizens, right? Against what's happening. So the AI and like the cruel, in my opinion, enforcement and like deportation, like control and really limit legal immigration has brought out so much that people are posting now more than ever.
Why is the conversation about the use of AI in investigating or in searching for applicants not on the mainstream? If they are doing this on immigration, then they should be doing it on other areas of policing, right?
For the same reason that we can't get a real amnesty to pass in Congress. People are much more interested in enforcing and deporting than fixing the system. So it's not sexy to fix the immigration system. They want to make it worse. They want people to leave. They want people deported. That's why it's not as important to talk about AI. And in fact, the American public thinks it's a good thing. AI is now helping find, people against America, people who are criminals, people who are trying to commit fraud. That's a good thing. Why is it a bad thing that AI is used for that? You know what I mean? The American public, that's who votes, that's who pays taxes, that's what the media wants to talk about, the media is catering to.
But if it's used to find criminals, is that a bad thing?
I think it's a bad thing as somebody who lives here in America, even though I'm an immigration lawyer, but I don't think it's a bad thing. On the other hand, as always, we try to balance the interests of the public against private interests of the individual. Right to privacy has sort of now, and I feel like people have accepted that. I don't know if this is like an immigration, right? But the right to privacy is gone in the immigration setting, right? The things that people get asked in their applications and their interviews would be like ridiculous to a citizen if somebody asked them that, that you're not supposed to, by law, ask at an interview, job interview, are the kinds of things that people have to answer at their U.S. citizenship or green card interviews.
So, you mentioned privacy, but if someone puts something out there on social media, that person forfeits the right to privacy, isn't it?
I think so, but I really think that a lot of people don't realize the extent of that. And they also think, like I said, they'll delete it, they'll clean it up. What did I even say? It wasn't that bad. The other thing is, when you're sitting in front of your computer, which is actually not what people are doing nowadays, they're on their phones now. So you're sitting there with your phone and doing something in it, like a second on your phone, like you're in the middle, I'm usually in the middle of something else, and I look at my phone and there's and I'll repost it with like a one sentence commentary. I don't think that fully sinks in that 5 years from now, you'll be going to an immigration interview and that will be used against you. You know what I mean? Like, most people don't give as much importance to their social media activity as they should. And this is why we're discussing this today, right? I mean, I think this is what you wanted to discuss today. And I think it's very important. That's why I agreed to speak about this, because people underestimate the importance of this. They'll do it on their phone, on the fly. It's something interesting to discuss, some article being reposted. But it's serious when you're applying for a visa. And anything you say can be used against you. And you don't have the protections of the First Amendment.
So what you're saying is, once you want to put something up on the internet, you need to think twice. And this comes around not only for immigration, but for other things you're doing in your life, because the internet is forever.
Of course. I tell my children, I have 3 girls, right? And I tell them, do not post pictures of you in bathing suits. Do not post, I'm sorry that I'm saying this, but like those pictures they all make now, the teenagers with their lips and this. I said 3 years from now, you're going to be applying to law school. One of my kids wants to go to law school. Or you're going to be applying to medical school or to be a nurse. And that's all out there for an employer to see. They just have to put your name in Google and all your social media comes up. It's not like, even for private people. I mean, there's nothing private anymore. So anything you post online is going to be used against you. We have a family friend. She's a pretty college age girl. She had a lot of pictures with very small bathing suits, like bikinis, okay? My, not like knowing about this, right? All of a sudden calls me one day, says, you need to sit down for this. He wouldn't even tell me this like standing up. I sit down. He says to me, I got this as like an advertising for some website, and he shows me her pictures all over the place saying sexy college ed girl wants your attention, and basically it's like a porn sign. Okay, so she had no idea that somebody took her pictures that she posted on her Instagram, okay, and appeared on some third-party website that she had no idea about. And I guess they advertised to men, because I never saw this. My husband got it in his Facebook feed, right? And he was like, we had to call her, and imagine that kind of a conversation. She's somebody else's child, you know, not child anymore. She's over 21, but still. And then she had to call this website, get in touch with them, and get that removed. And this is like, it happens now. Whatever you put out there can be used in ways that you cannot even predict. You cannot predict how it will be used, you know?
That is why we came up with this checklist, which lets you think about what you are posting, and it lets you reflect about what you are doing from the immigration perspective. And this also holds for life perspective. So if you're watching us now and you know is applying for immigration benefits, be it visas, green cards, adjustment of status, or whatsoever, save this conversation, share it with that person, come back later and download this checklist and go through it. You should have this in your communities, because it's going to help you think about your process and other things about life. It's not only about immigration, but talking about this in the immigration context. The example you just gave explains this completely, because that was not in the immigration context, right?
And when you apply to any graduate school or a job or whatever, and especially if you're going to apply to corporate jobs in America, they definitely invest in investigating you. And the first thing they do is look to social media, and they just Google your name. Even like I meet somebody new and I want to know about them, I just Google their name. And these bikini pictures or whatever you posted will come up. Make no doubt about it. The Google, the internet has everything. It never will go away. Never, ever. There's no way to take it down, even if you delete your account.
That is why the very first question on this checklist is, if someone were to Google me right now, what will come up? What would the person see? So it's as important as anything for us to think about.
Yeah. First.
Absolutely. You have to do that check once in a while to see where you are on the internet. So if somebody is doing something about you, or somebody's using your name somewhere, you get to know that information. And so, having spoken about this, what do you think is the reality? I don't know if you have had any clients who have gone through this process, who have had the media, social accounts, or information brought up to them during their if you can tell us about that, but of course, respecting client attorney confidentiality.
So what I have like a whole list that I wanted to discuss, but the first thing that pops into my mind is you file, like I had a Russian client. He is from a certain part of Russia where there's a lot of people, you know, of tribes. It's like family clans, I would say. So anyway, he was filing for asylum, saying that the government persecutes his clan. You know, he's supposed to be some opposition, and we were looking him up on social media without even like really looking for his social media. We were just Googling him to see what is, you know, family, like clan about. You know, first thing we see is him on his Instagram account holding like the Constitution and saying he loves the president and he supports this new Constitution, whatever it is. So this is completely against the whole story that he is in opposition to the government. You understand? So whatever he told us, he's saying, I was persecuted by the government. They hated me and my family. I hated them. I was an opposition person. the first thing that comes up is him holding a flag and like the Constitution and posting how much he loves the president. You know, the first thing that pops into my mind. And of course, we couldn't represent him anymore after that because we found out he was lying. His whole thing was a lie. And this is what I'm saying. People don't realize what they post is going to be used against them in ways they can't even imagine. You know, of course, there's other things. For in a marriage green card situation, you'll have people posting with other love partners. So like you go to USCIS with this person, you know, you have on your social media kissy, huggy pictures with someone else, like from a week. Okay, that's you said you had some injury somewhere as part of your humanitarian case, and there's pictures of you dancing in a club that week. Okay, never by pictures. This is just pictures. This is like touching the tip of the iceberg. Of course, with everything that's happening now, any post where you're criticizing the government of the United States, you're criticizing Trump, you're calling him agency, like, you know, insulting things, insulting, very bad. You know, saying, I hate him, burning the flag, things like that, you're never getting a visa, okay? Posting support for what America considers terrorist organizations like Hamas, for example, right? You privately could say to, you know, if you're with your friends, maybe you support what happened on October 7th in Israel, right? I disagree with you, but as a U.S. citizen, I would say, okay, if you are a citizen, you have a right to say what you want to say. If you are a new immigrant or applying for a visa and you're posting support for a terrorist attack on October 7th, U.S. government doesn't want you here. You will get denied. And we already had a case with a Columbia, university student. He had a green card. He wasn't yet a citizen. He was also, supporting Israel. He already got deported. Okay, so you could lose your green card for this. You're going to get denied for a passport for stuff like this. Again, if you're a citizen, maybe I will have a discussion with you and believe that you have a right to your opinions. But when you're applying for a visa and you're basically posting things and be against what our political system supports, right? Our government, our way of life, then you will be denied. And then I hear too, jokes about immigration, jokes about lying to the government is bad. Exposing too much of what you are going through, like your application, this is what happened, is also bad. Showing work pictures in US when you don't have a work authorization is bad. Like if you student visa, you're not allowed to work in US. But then if you have a picture of you sitting at work and saying, here's me at work, that's bad. You're going to get denied for lying when there's a question on the form. If you ever violated immigration law, have you ever worked without a work authorization? And there's pictures of you working or whatever, post about you working without authorization, that's bad. Posts about drugs, let's be honest, like holding alcohol bottles, criminal activity, supporting anything like that, having weird tattoo pictures. Some tattoos are listed on the manuals used by consular officers and USCIS as gang signs. So like certain tattoos on your body are considered to be that you are a gang member, So there's that, you're going to have a problem ever getting any kind of visa. So then, again, threats, criticizing the content, where you are praising violence, terrorist groups, hate groups, or civilians is bad.
You've read the story of the Colombian student from Columbia University who was deported. Yeah. And that comes to mind because Secretary Rubio said a visa is not a right, it is a privilege.
I've said this repeatedly. I don't know why it's so hard for some to comprehend it, so let me repeat it again. A visa, no one's entitled to a visa. There is no constitutional right to a visa.
Can you distinguish that for us?
So certain things are considered your right. For example, we just had a whole Supreme Court case about the automatic citizenship to children born in US under the 14th Amendment, right? So that is your right under the Constitution, under the 14th Amendment. If you are a citizen and you get arrested in a criminal court, you have a right to a criminal defense attorney, right? So these are things protected by our government, by the Constitution. If you don't have citizenship yet, you're applying for a visa for a temporary visit to US. You're applying to be a resident of US, right? That's a privilege that they have to consider. They have to check your background. They have to check all these things. That's a privilege. You don't have a right to come here. It's a privilege. It's something that they give you. They extend their benevolence, their discretion. So that's the difference.
And there was so much talk about it in the media and with politics, especially around this question of tattoos and the right to free speech. Let's talk about this once in a moment. But coming back to the how do they reconcile the difference between the social media that they saw and the interview? To which do they give more value? Does something they saw on the internet immediately disqualify what you have put on your application?
They usually not immediately. They will give you a right to come and explain, or they will issue something called a request for evidence, or something called a notice of intent to deny. So in certain cases, they give you a chance to address, and they have to say exactly what it is they found and what it is that makes the person that has this tattoo or this post ineligible for the benefit, like for the visa, green card, right? But they will, in some cases, give you a right to come to the interview and explain. And it doesn't mean that like you will automatically, if you say something different at the interview, they might give you this interview as a chance to catch you at lying about it. So you're very careful with what you say at this interview.
So what you are saying is they can run your social media investigation and see whatever they see, but they will still give an opportunity to come explain yourself. And during that explanation, you may be committing another crime that automatically disqualifies you if you lie under oath.
Yeah, or maybe a crime, but more of like an immigration violation. Then they can accuse you of misrepresentation or fraud, And
at that point, you have any recourse, any other avenues to challenge that decision?
You do, of course. In many cases, you if it's yes, and you're applying for, like, let's say a card, you can always do a motion to reconsider. You can appeal it. If it's outside of US, honestly, a lot of decisions by consular officers are not appealable. So you have options to backtrack and change what happened if it's a visa situation and you're applying through the US consulate. Inside US, you would say you have a little bit more options for appeals or motion to reopen and reconsider.
All right. So basically, you're saying if your visa is denied while you are abroad, you have very limited or no chances of reviewing that. But if you're in the US already, you can have opportunities for an appeal or a motion to reconsider the decision.
Correct.
Kindly save this conversation, leave a comment, like, share, and subscribe, because you will not find this elsewhere. We know how this conversation is different from other conversations you hear on social immigration questions. So this goes into the depth of what you need to know and how lawyers think and how the immigration authorities also think through the process. Still on the question of social media posts, let's use a hypothetical. Someone who is already in the US from a certain country around the world had a social media account about 20 years ago. Then he's in the US, he's gone through the asylum process, it took a very long time. He's forgotten about the account he created. He intentionally forgot. He did not intentionally forget. Circumstances pushed him to abandon the account, or he's no longer using the account. And then at the immigration for citizenship or something, would immigration officers pull that up under the
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely, because now you're required to provide, well, first of all, a lot of use their actual name. Not everyone, but a lot of people use their actual first and last name, like I do on social media. And then you're required to disclose any nicknames, any By the way, if you forgot about that account and you don't disclose it and they find it, they will accuse you of misrepresentation. Whether it was intentional or unintentional because you forgot, they don't care. They will say you were misrepresented by hiding it, especially if there's stuff there that they can use against it. And even things that are deleted, they can find.
So let me make sure I understand this very clearly. If you have abandoned an account more than 10 or 20 years ago, it can still be found through the current immigration processes.
Yes, because they use AI recognition.
But they would give you an opportunity to come explain.
Like if you had there with your face, if your name was there, any other, because they do facial recognition now in every airport, so they sat and find your old accounts, even in deleted files online.
Okay. But you still have an opportunity to explain that you had forgotten about this account. You did not intentionally abandon it. It's there. You didn't close and you had just forgotten about it.
Right. And you have to show maybe that you've rehabilitated since then, or the further back is, the better is your chance of overcoming this.
Tell us more about that.
And this was when you were 15 and you were like under 18 or whatever, then it's not as heavy and as critical as something you did as an adult, for example, or something that you did only 3-4 years ago. The further back in history it is, the younger you were, the easier it is to explain, sometimes to get a waiver for something like that.
Is this why it is important to have an attorney accompany you during your immigration process?
I think that if you are not using an attorney in today's climate, you're definitely asking for a denial. I mean, now more than ever, you need an attorney for anything, especially if you're filing for a green card.
Sometimes when you read on the news, it looks like even with an attorney, you're still not going to prevail.
Yeah,
is that
it is legitimate, because even with an attorney, there's no guarantees that you will come out a winner in the system. The tides have shifted. I feel the old administration, and even before, there was generally this trend towards approving you, right? So most people, if there's no crimes, anything bad, were approved for a lot of things. Now I feel like they want to turn the tide and they want to deny a lot more than ever before. So you have to understand, you're going into this with used to go into this with the idea that you have a great chance of approval, and now you're in with the idea that even with an attorney, you could lose this. So it's a little bit of a different scenario.
Better be safe than to regret. So you need an attorney to help you grow.
Yes, absolutely. And if you know that, look, for most people eligible, like if you didn't make it wrong, if you never posted any terrorist support, if you don't have pictures when you're filing for a green card from yesterday, you should be fine. By the way, they can even check your phone at this interview, and they do this. They take your cell phone and they look through your texting history to see what pictures you've been sending people. Who are you texting? I've had that happen to our clients. Like if they come with their spouse and the officer takes their phone and they're looking at their phone for social media platforms and just texting between you and friends and whoever, right? They might also find pictures that are inappropriate for your process. And you have to understand that they have a right to do that.
Yeah, I was going to ask about this because previously I raised the question of waiving your right to privacy when you put something on social media, but now this is communication between you and your spouse.
And third parties.
Yeah, and third parties. And getting into your phone is, here now I see the right to privacy.
Yeah, but the government feel that you have a right to privacy when you ask them for a visa or a green card. I've had people to me when they came through the border, like let's say they went to another country, coming back to the airport, the U.S. Officers, the CBP, the airport, they represent the Customs and Border Enforcement. That's part of the Department of Homeland Security. They'll take phones and question them about what's in their phones, and they have found evidence of prostitution, working without employment authorization, and illegal or activities that violate the person's immigration status in U.S. in the phones. And they also can look in deleted files on your phone.
That is becoming a little bit more interesting here, because generally when people look at the questions around immigration, they are looking at crimes, they are looking at violations of certain, but we have not mentioned crimes of, not necessarily crimes of moral turpitude, but issues around morality.
There's a big thing now. And in fact, our clients who are going for their citizenship, their naturalization interviews, I now advise them to bring evidence of good moral character, which is way beyond of, look, they fingerprints, you haven't been arrested. Great, good moral character. No more. Okay. Nowadays, I tell people, bring reference letters to this interview. Bring your church letter saying that you go to this church. Volunteering, job reference letters, like your supervisor, your boss should write you a letter that this is your position, they really like you, you're an important part of the company, stuff like that. Anything. And on the other side of this coin, right? If you've been arrested, and I've had clients like that, if you've been arrested a few times, but everything was dismissed, so you weren't convicted of anything. The fact that you had multiple arrests is telling the officer that you are not a person of good moral character. Even if there's no conviction, you were never convicted of anything, because every time you got arrested, it was dismissed. Look, in New York, I'll be honest with you, in New York, you get arrested, it's your first time, there's a big chance things are going to get dismissed against you because they're so busy, the courts are overwhelmed, the trial attorneys are overwhelmed. So if you get picked up for like smoking marijuana or something, it's probably going to get dismissed. Your first 3-4 prostitution arrests, shoplifting, will be dismissed in New York. I've done criminal defense too, so I know this. Now, in Texas, maybe not. Or like if you're in Long Island in the county and you're driving drunk, you're going to jail for years, So things like that, you understand going into this process. They look at you very closely. It's a very individual process, and all history, good and bad, will come up.
Let me make sure I understand this very, very well. The first thing is, besides the legal questions or the criminal questions, there is also an important role of moral characters.
Absolutely.
And
if you are a useful person for the society here, if you're going to be like a valuable asset to America, if you're going to be the kind of person we want as a neighbor, put it this way, that's the test. Are you the kind of guy or girl or whatever, they, them, that we want as a neighbor? So we want somebody who volunteers, who has a good job, who goes to college or went to college. We want somebody who pays taxes. We want somebody who pays their child support, right? We want somebody who doesn't have arrests and, domestic violence problems. We want somebody who has multiple arrests, even if they were dismissed, right? We want somebody who helps their family with like elderly people or children or whatever. We don't want the other kinds of people who have multiple arrests and convictions. We don't want people who are posting online supporting terrorism, right? Even if we respect the citizens' right to free speech, right? But those people are already here. Do we want new people who are going to support like terrorism and cause problems in our society? The answer is no.
I want us to talk again about this moral character, how to overcome it, or how to show that you're a person of a good moral standing. You've mentioned letters from church, from neighborhoods, from jobs, to show that you are actually in good standing. Have you had anyone use these to show or to overcome the question of moral standing?
Yes, first and foremost, tax returns. The fact that you live here as soon as you got your work permit, or even before, because a lot of people are working without work authorization, even before they get work authorization, even if they forgive that, right? Like for certain cases, like a marriage petition, the citizen spouse is sponsoring their spouse who worked here legally, who overstayed their visa, that's usually forgiven, right? But you want to show that when you were working illegally, you were still paying taxes. Tax returns is very important. I usually put that as like number 1 on lists for asylum. When you go to court and you want to show the judge you're a person of good moral character, when you go to an interview for a green card or citizenship, tax returns, best practice is to order your transcripts from irs.gov. Download your transcript. that not only your copy, but this actually went to the federal government and they have it in their system. So tax returns, number one on the list, very important. Education, job letters, very important, because you are not going to need any public benefits. You're not going to need welfare, food stamps. You're not going to need free insurance from the government. You're a self-supporting working person and they like you at your job. And you showed up for 4 years to college, so you know how to have discipline and follow rules, right? College is also good. Higher education. Look, like, just think about it. Somebody is definitely going to be somebody we want to give a green card to, but even if you're not, we're going down the list here. Letters of recommendation from your church, from your community organizations, like, your local YMCA or whatever, volunteer at the soup kitchen on Thanksgiving. If you donate to Red Cross or whatever it is that you donate, like good positive things for the society. If you are helping clean up beaches in California, right? If you are like somebody who's helped during the hurricane or whatever, you can get reference letters. If you're taking care of your elderly, like cousin, or if you're helping your brothers with their kids and babysit, those are all good things to document and bring to this interview to show good moral character.
That's fantastic. So going beyond what is on the official request, you're hearing from the attorney herself. She's saying you need to document certain things like how
to our clients, like this is you're getting the benefit of what I tell our clients to do, and we absolutely do this for all our clients now. This is not just for the show. We do this for everyone, and we talk to them about this, and it's like work. It's like a whole job because nobody has these readily available. So you got to chase down people for letters, for signatures, to get your boss to give a good letter of recommendation. But that's kind of the idea, that you are the kind of that can get all this together, organize yourself, and file. That's the kind of person we want to give a green card to. Like I saw this in the show. This is one of those shows where Sylvester Stallone is now like the main cat. Forget the name for it. He was driving in this car with someone, and he says the college degree is not about the paper. It's not about your diploma. It's about the fact that you had the discipline to show up for 4 years, do like 15 credits a semester, and it means 15 a semester, and then do all the homeworks and the projects and the group projects. And you went to here and you went to graduation and you filled out applications. And at the end, you got this paper. So that means you can do a long-term project. You're reliable. You're somebody who's going to show up to work on time. You're somebody who knows what they're doing. Same thing for immigration. That's the kind of person we want to give a green card to. And we don't want to give it to the other people, the people who have arrests, who can't keep themselves in like the middle of society. They have to be on the fringes. They have to be arrested. We don't want people like that. We will follow rules.
Viewers, I don't think you're going to have this anywhere else. So you better save this conversation, share it, leave a comment, and always come back to it to have an idea of what is happening, because I know most of the viewers have people who are applying for immigration benefits. So it's very important. But I want us to circle a little bit back to those red flags. Let's talk about political red flags. I know you've mentioned terrorism. You've mentioned demonstrations within the United States. And are there any other kind of political actions that will put you in trouble?
I think that they don't like anybody who goes to any kinds of protest. I'll be honest with you. Even if it's something like kind of positive, like if you're, let's say, protesting in support of women's right to, abortion or something like that, and you think good thing, or against ICE agents or whatever. So some people will say that's a positive thing. You're fighting injustice. I don't think we want, like, the immigration officers are looking for very active, like, type of people. They're going to agitate the society. Being frank with you, I don't think that they want something like that. Anything political that you were like, it's one thing if you were, let's say, and you asked for asylum because of that. That's a different story. But if you're applying for a student visa and you like pictures and posts from all these like protests, I'm not sure you're going to get the tourist or student visa, right? If you're speaking out against the dogma that the U.S. government supports and promotes, like, again, even if in your country that's going to be okay to come here and get a visa, believing and posting about things like that. Like, if you think it's a good thing to have wives or whatever, or husbands, to be fair, I don't think it's gonna fly for a visa application. If you think it's cool that girls in Afghanistan can't leave their house and only are required to have one eye now, you're not cool. You're not coming here. You're gonna get denied. Yeah, I'm being honest. It might be okay in your country, but it's not okay for America.
Let's talk about those who are in here. What about attending a town hall by your senator or your congressperson?
I think that's going to be okay, as long as it's not like some political issue that's like a really dramatic, thing. I think it's if you're in your community, you attend town hall meetings, that's fine.
What about drug abuse? Most people come into the United States from their countries, for example, is illegal in those countries. Then in some parts of the United States, it is legal.
Complicated issue with cannabis, because even though a lot of the states have allowed personal or medical use of marijuana and cannabis products, it is still an illegal drug for federal law. So federally, it's still illegal. And since immigration is a federal benefit, if you have any kind of arrest for cannabis use, or God forbid, you're working at a cannabis factory or field, you might get denied for bad moral character, even if you've never been arrested, because it's still illegal on the federal criminal list. It's like one of those drugs that's on the list, categories by, heroin being number one, maybe cannabis is number list of dangerous drugs. It's still there. It's still considered illegal. And transporting it between states is still illegal.
So if you're just consuming it and you have never been caught, should you be concerned?
There are questions on the forums about that. Obviously, if you've never been and nobody is around to hear it, did it make a sound? Like one of those questions. But of course, I'm a lawyer. I can't tell you to lie on your application. And so if you put down that you have used for personal use, be prepared for them to ask you a lot of questions about it. And again, the questions are meant to catch you in a lie. They're not meant for you to explain yourself more and get a green card.
So are you, when you apply?
For visa, yes. You have to do a whole medical exam when you apply for a visa and for a green card too. They do test for drugs. We had somebody who was a beneficiary and mental issues, and he was taking medications. And he was denied for drug use. They found controlled substances in his blood. So
when you're already in the United States and you apply, say, for citizenship, would they test you, or something must trigger them to ask you to go for it?
Green card, yes. Citizenship, something had to have been in your application for them to ask you about it.
Scenarios can we see here on say somebody's passing through a very sophisticated hotel. He goes into the lobby, takes photos of the lobby, and sends out that on social media. See, I'm enjoying my life here. I spend at least 30 hours here a month. Can that trigger something?
I don't think so, but it depends what's in the pictures. If there's always drinks, alcohol in the pictures, women, maybe. If it's just I also will go to a nice hotel and it's beautiful arrangements and I'll take pictures with my colleagues. No, that's not a problem. But if you are posting alcohol and maybe you're smoking things, green little cigarettes, and there's women or whatever in your pictures, you might get questioned about it.
Right. So the point here is be very careful about your political associations and declarations. Advice is you should keep away from those and keep away from drugs, and be careful what you post out there about your lifestyle.
Yeah. And also, don't get arrested. I had a phone call with somebody who was a truck here on a temporary parole program. He had a few drinks. He was sleeping in his truck. He wasn't driving. It wasn't on. The car was turned off. He got arrested. It's a crime to be drunk in your car, even if you're not driving it. And the police pulled over. He was sleeping and he got arrested. And then they put him in an alcohol monitoring program. He violated that. And then that turned into a real conviction. And now he's not eligible for anything. I told him, you can't file for anything. Anything you file will trigger ICE detention. at this point.
So you mentioned something very important. Many people consume alcohol. The problem is driving under the influence of alcohol or using alcohol in a car. Can you please talk a little bit about that?
You can be arrested, obviously, for driving while intoxicated, DUI, DWI, depends on the state, how they call it, right? You can get arrested for driving under, some drugs too. But more even like extending it further, right? In your car and there's bottles in it, they will arrest you, even if you're not drunk right now. If you're in your car sleeping after having too much to drink, even if the car is not running, it's turned off, you will get arrested and convicted. And other situations, if you're in a car with friends and they have drugs in the car and you're sober, you didn't use these drugs, you will still get arrested and you could be convicted as a co-conspirator. So this is what I tell, it's interesting. These are all the things that I tell my kids. Like the things that I tell my clients is exactly the conversations I have with my teenagers. I'm like, listen, sometimes you're around people, you don't know what they have in the car, you don't know what they have in their bag. Somebody gives you a drink, you don't know what's in that drink. They tell you it's a Coke, Coca-Cola, or Pepsi, or whatever. There could be some drug in there that you don't know. You never know, and you think you're in control. You think you know your friends. You think nobody's going to know, but they will find out and things will come out. And sometimes things that are completely unpredictable to you, things that you couldn't even think about when the situation was starting is what's going to, screw you at the end. If there's drugs where you are, as if you didn't use these drugs, you could go to jail for drug possession and at least being a co-conspirator if it's a lot of drugs. Then they'll accuse the person whose drugs these are of trafficking, and you're going to be a co-conspirator, even if you knew nothing about it. If you're in the car and somebody goes and robs a freaking gas station, you're a co-conspirator. You're going to be accused and convicted of the same crime as the robber if you didn't report it, right? And a lot of these like situations, immigration setting is exactly the kind of things you should talk to your kids about, You shouldn't have any alcohol inside your moving car or a parked car, kind of a car. It just doesn't mix. Driving and alcohol never mix. Drugs and driving never mix. If you are asking for a visa or filing for a green card or don't have citizenship yet, you shouldn't even think of using drugs, even marijuana. You don't have the right to it. Like you said in the beginning, it's a privilege. It's not a right to get a green card. And you have no rights to this.
So what I'm hearing from you is be very careful about the company you keep.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And like I said, a lot of times it's a cultural thing because I am, a Russian speaking person from Eastern Europe, right? Originally. In former Soviet, I was born in all the countries. It was okay to bribe a police officer if you get pulled over being drunk, and it's kind of acceptable, right? Here, if you offer an officer who pulls you over a bribe, it's like a major crime. You're going to get convicted and go to jail. People still ask me if I know any judge that I can bribe for them to get papers, and I'm blown away. Okay, and I'm sure it's the same way from other cultures and for different things. But here in America, alcohol and drug use and prostitution and marriages is bad. I'm saying at the same time, you're married to several at the same time, polygamy, bad. They will do for things that are probably
Concerning the political question, there is one thing we hear every day, and that is one thing that brings many people to the United States of America: freedom, freedom of speech, freedom of expression. It sounds here like there is no freedom of expression to protect against what somebody says.
It's a complicated issue because the freedom of expression is also limited. Even under the Constitution, certain things are excluded from being protected, right? If you are yelling fire in a full theater of people, that's not protected speech. If you're burning a flag, sometimes it's not protected speech. If you're an immigrant and you're applying for an American visa or an American green card, and you're criticizing the American way of being, of government, of political system, you hate the president, you hate this, you hate that, might not be protected speech because you're asking that same government to give a privileged benefit of a green card, right? And until you become a citizen, you don't have that kind of a right. You don't have the full right of protected speech.
So the basic lesson here is freedom of speech has its own exceptions and it's not universal. And as an applicant, you should be very careful about that because it does not it does not stretch to certain limits, especially when it deals with national security and others.
Yeah. And look, there are ways to go about expressing your opinion that's not gonna, American laws too. I mean, if you wanted to have a discussion and, I'm curious, so I'd like to know more about it. Just say, F America, I hope Trump dies, that orange clown, that's not protected speech. So it's like different. Even people you follow, right? So media driven by certain algorithms, right? So if you're interested in criticizing Trump, for example, right, you like start to read one post where somebody criticized Trump and you're like, yeah, I agree, and you put a like there, they're gonna start suggesting more kind of stuff to you. So things that I'm reading and that you're reading are very different because it feeds you what you show interest in. And the more you get into it, the more extreme of things you're going to start to get fed through the algorithm. So maybe you started out researching something about whatever, something Trump said, and then you liked a few posts where people criticize. Now that's all you're getting. And people forget that. They get lost in social media. That's the thing. People are like, I feel like a lot of people are unprepared and don't understand how this stuff works, They don't think about that. So maybe you're not such an extremist Trump. Now that's all you're reading every day. You're seeing that on your Facebook, on your Instagram, whatever. Needing to be a lot more extreme. And then you start on your account about that. And then you get into problems. And it's like that with everything, by the way. It's not just, I'm using the Trump thing as like a glaring, very obvious example. But, same thing with like, the social justice issues discussing about and terrorism, discussions of all these like really critical and very like sharp. The more liking that kind of stuff, the more of that kind of stuff you're gonna get, and the more in trouble you can get. So try to stay away from very like, I don't know how to try to stay away from very extreme opinions like that. Like them. If you are seeing this is dangerous and that's not the kind of person you are, just scroll by. Don't like it. You could even, there's an option that you could say, I don't like this kind of, show me this kind of content anymore. And this way you're safe, you're protecting it.
But in a practical sense, you are saying that what we see on social media is determined by the social media. If we show interest, they continue showing that to us.
Yeah. It's a slippery slide. And you have to be super careful. People don't even think about it.
That is why we ask you to like this video so that they continue sending you video of this magnitude video with such information, and you hear from attorneys themselves and from people who are very knowledgeable about these issues so that you get to know more about them. So for someone applying today, the take away message here is you already have a social media account, you already have a social media history, and that social media history is going to be reviewed by the officers. So what should that person do?
I mean, look, yes, go through it and delete anything that's gonna, obviously be glaring red flag. Perhaps since you will delete it, it's clear that you're not like that anymore, and that might help.
Deleting would here not be like obstructing?
I mean, you're sincere that you want to, if you should review what you post once in a while. Things no longer true to you. You know what I mean? Even sincerely thinking about that. Obviously, don't obstruct, but take a look at your social media accounts, and it seems practical. Anything that might be a problem, but only if you believe in it. Only if it rings true to you, of course. But you're prepared to explain things, I guess, if they're there. If you have long-term plans to come to America and apply for, a lot of people do, people apply for student visas. Let's say you went to college and you want to come to graduate school in America. Like, have a long-term plan. Like, don't post this years in advance. If you're next year to apply for a visa, this year, don't post anything like that. Keep this in mind.
So how should a prospective visa applicant or immigration privacy settings on their accounts? Should they make their accounts completely private? And would that be to an officer?
I don't think it's going to help because you have to disclose even the private account and give them access. So I don't think it matters whether you make it private or public. It doesn't matter. You shouldn't post things that can be used against you, period.
So if you have an account, use it and use it in a way in which you would assume and bear the consequences of your use of that account.
Yeah, absolutely.
A friend sent me this question to ask you, and the question is the one most common mistake you see immigrants make on social media that ruins their chances of success?
Political posts. People forget that, this is going to be viewed by consular officers, and they make political posts that are very strong, very extreme. And also, that's what I'm saying. Like when you're at home by yourself in front of a computer in the middle of the night, having some coffee, you forget that people are reading this and the rest of the world can see it. People, they say, oh, somebody is a keyboard warrior. People act very differently when they're posting online versus if you see them on the street and you say this to my face, guy. And you will never say this to your face. They're nice and polite outside. So act online the way you would act outside if you are thinking, as you should be, that the world is going to read what you post on your account and not just consular officers. Speaking about myself personally, I have an active social presence and stuff with work stuff, but my personal stuff is usually me with my children, fully dressed, talking about social issues that are kind of friendly and nice, talking about some good shows. Be the kind of person that people want to communicate with. Don't be an angry asshole. That's the kind of people that are not going to get a visa to us.
All right. Thank you so much. And I think we should be rounding up. But still, I see you have so much information that you can share with us. Are you promising the viewers that you're going to be back?
I'll be back. If you want a consultation about your immigration matter, whether it's asylum or a T visa, we do a lot of work with people who are applying for humanitarian visas. A T visa is when you're working somewhere in America and you get abused at work. You're an immigrant and you don't know all your rights. If you are in a bad marriage and you want to file for VAWA, a regular marriage case, waivers, like if you have made mistakes with arrest and social media stuff and misrepresentation, can help you with waivers and deportation. We work with courts and represent people in immigration removal proceedings.
Fantastic. So there's a little bit more structure now so the viewers can pick that up. So if someone has to do one today after this conversation, what should that be?
Review your social media content. Take a look at the last, I would say, 3 months or so. What have you been talking about? What have you been posting? And you might learn things that you are going to be very surprised about, because you will see what I'm saying about being fed the algorithm and what you are reposting, what you're sharing. And is that the kind of image projection that you want consular officers or USCIS officers to know? Is there a side of you that's not a very good side that's online and you're a different person in life, in real life, IRL, as my kids say? So review your social media. Do delete anything that's inappropriate. And now that you've listened to this very important show, and Bernard and myself have talked about this ad nauseum, we've discussed this in detail, take a look, and that is the most practical advice. Take a look at your social media, go 4 months. And look at this great questionnaire that Bernard's company had put together, Beyond Africa. This is a very useful tool. I approve.
Thank you so much. Go through this document and see what you've done. And the document is in the link below, so you can download it and share the link with your friends to get access to it and see how you can audit your social media presence and prepare yourself for immigration benefits. And also, remember, this conversation is not all about you. It is about you, your friends, your family, and all those who are in the immigration process. They should always do this. And even thinking about doing something on immigration in 10 years, 20 years, it is important you start now. And I say this because you should know this better than I do and better than any of around here is for family visas, there are some visas that you apply today, but they would mature in about 10 or 20 years. So the beneficiaries should be very careful about what they put online. Can you say something about that?
Absolutely. I mean, a lot of these cases that people are filing, the family cases and the cases take years to be approved. So don't start thinking about your social media presence or other things like your organization associations, right? Some people are members of certain organizations, whether it's a community organization. We had a lady who was from India and she was a member of some organization that ended up being considered a terrorist organization later by the US government. Not at the time that she was a member, but already once she was in America and years past, that organization went extreme and US designated it as a terrorist organization. So be very mindful of who you associate you with. Organizations, people, what you post on social media, because if you're waiting 3, 4, 5, 8, 10, 20 years for your petition to become ripe for a visa, right? All of this time is very important. They could be looking at what you've been doing, your social media posts, what work you've done, have you been working, stuff like that.
If somebody is supposed to learn one lesson from today, what would that be?
Do not underestimate the importance of social media for your US immigration visa or green card or citizenship process. Be very mindful of what you post and review it on a regular basis.
Thank you so much, Marina. It's been a very, very important conversation with you. And I know that those who come across the conversation would find it very useful. I would add your socials in the description so that those who want to know more about your services and those who want to hear more about you can definitely see you where you are. Do you have any last word for the viewers?
I just want to give people like a message of hope that even with this, and a lot of people are really scared to file anything. I don't think you should be scared. I think that you should hire a lawyer. You should review your application. You should know your strategy. You should be prepared to file and not be afraid. Do not live in fear. Don't let fear of what you're seeing in the news stop you from living your life and getting the green card that you deserve. Many people are absolutely eligible for a green card, but they're just afraid, And I'm here to say people are still getting green cards, even under the getting people approved all the time. Don't be scared. Get a good lawyer. You'll be fine.
Thank you so much. I hope that message goes through. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching this episode of the Beyond Africa podcast. As usual, we are bringing you more. Stay tuned and see you in the next episode of this podcast. Bye-bye.